East of Eden, chapter 37. February in Salinas is likely to be damp and cold and full of miseries. The heaviest rains fall then, and if the river's going to rise, it rises then. February of 1915 was a year heavy with water. The Trasks were well established in Salinas. Lee, once he'd given up his brackish, bookish dream, made a new kind of place for himself in the house beside Reno's bakery. On the ranch, his possessions had never really been unpacked. For Lee had lived poised to go someplace else. Here, for the first time in his life, he built a home for himself, feathered with comfort and permanence. The large bedroom nearest the street door fell to him. Lee dipped into his savings. He had never before spent a needless penny, since all money had been earmarked for his bookstore. But now he bought a little hard bed and a desk. He built bookshelves and unpacked his books. He invested in a soft rug, tacked prints on the walls. He placed a deep and comfortable Morris chair under the best reading lamp he could find, and last he bought a typewriter and set about learning to use it. Having broken out of his own Spartanism, he remade the Trasks household, and Adam gave him no opposition. A gas stove came into the house, and electric wires and a telephone. He spent Adam's money remorselessly. New furniture, new carpets, a gas water heater, and a large ice box. In a short time there was hardly a house in Salinas so well equipped. Lee defended himself to Adam, saying, "You have plenty of money. Be ashamed not to enjoy it." "I'm not complaining," Adam protested. "Only I'd like to buy something too. What shall I buy?" "Why don't you go to Logan's music store and listen to one of the new phonographs?" "Oh, I think I'll do that," said Adam. And he bought a Victor Victrola, a tall Gothic instrument, and he went regularly to see what new records had come in. The growing century was shucking Adam out of his shell. He subscribed to the Atlantic Monthly and the National Geographic. He joined the Masons and seriously considered the Elks. The new icebox fascinated him. He bought a textbook on refrigeration and began to study it. The truth was that Adam needed work. He came out of his long sleep needing to do something. "I think I'll go into business," he said to Lee. "You don't need to. You have enough to live on." "But I'd like to be doing something." "Oh, that's different," said Lee. "Know what you want to do? I don't think you'd be very good at business." "Why not?" "Oh, just a thought," said Lee. "Say, Lee, I want you to read an article. It says they've dug up a mastodon in Siberia. Been in the ice thousands of years, and the meat's still good." Lee smiled at him. "You've got a bug in your bonnet somewhere," he said. "What have you got in all those little cups in the icebox?" "Oh, different things." "Is that the business? Some of those cups smell bad." "It's an idea," Adam said. "I can't seem to stay away from it. I just can't seem to get over the idea that you can keep things if you get them cold enough." "Oh, let's not have any mastodon meat in our icebox," said Lee. If Adam had conceived thousands of ideas the way Sam Hamilton had, they might all have drifted away, but he had only the one. The frozen mastodon stayed in his mind. His little cups of fruit, of pudding, of bits of meat, both cooked and raw, continued in the icebox. He bought every available book on bacteria, began sending for magazines that printed articles of a mildly scientific nature. And as is usually true of a man of one idea, he became obsessed. Salinas had a small ice company, not large, but enough to supply the few houses with ice boxes and to service the ice cream parlours. The horse-drawn ice wagon went its route every day. Adam began to visit the ice plant, and pretty soon he was taking his little cups to the freezing chambers. He wished with all his heart that Sam Hamilton were alive to discuss cold with him. Sam would have covered the field very quickly, he thought. Adam was walking back from the ice plant one rainy afternoon, thinking about Sam Hamilton, when he saw Will Hamilton go into the Abbott House bar. He followed him and leaned against the bar beside him. "Why don't you come up and have some supper with us?" "Oh, I'd like to," said Will. "I'll tell you what, I've got a deal I'm trying to put through. If I get finished in time, I'll walk by. Is there something important?" "Well, I don't know. I've been doing some thinking, and I'd like to ask your advice." Nearly every business proposition in the county came sooner or later to Will Hamilton's attention. He might have excused himself if he had not remembered that Adam was a rich man. An idea was one thing, but backed up with cash it was quite another. "You wouldn't entertain a reasonable offer for your ranch, would you?" he asked. "Well, the boys, particularly Cal, they like the place. I think I'll hang on to it." "I think I can turn it over for you." "Oh, no, it's rented, paying its own taxes. I'll hold on to it." "If I can't get in for supper, I might be able to come in afterwards," said Will. Will Hamilton was a very substantial businessman. No one knew exactly how many pies his thumb had explored, but it was known that he was clever and comparatively rich. His business deal had been non-existent. It was part of his policy always to be busy and occupied. He had summer alone in the Abbott house. After a considered time, he walked around the corner on Central Avenue and rang the bell of Adam Trasks' house. The boys had gone to bed. Lee sat with a darning basket, mending the long black stockings the twins wore to school. Adam had been reading the Scientific American. He let Will in, placed a chair for him. Lee brought a pot of coffee and went back to his mending. Will settled himself into a chair, took out a fat black cigar and lighted up. He waited for Adam to open the game. "Nice weather for a change." "And how's your mother?" Adam said. "Just fine. Seems younger every day. The boys must be growing up." "Oh, they are. Cal's going to be in his school play. He's quite an actor. Aaron's a real good student. Cal wants to go into farming." "Oh, nothing wrong with that if you go about it right. Country could use some forward-looking farmers." Will waited uneasily. He wondered if it could be that Adam's money was exaggerated. Could Adam be getting ready to borrow money? Will quickly worked out how much he had lent on the Trask ranch and how much he could borrow on it. The figures were not the same, nor was the interest rate. And still Adam did not come up with his proposition. Will grew restless. "I can't stay very long," he said. "Told a fellow I'd meet him later tonight." "Have another cup of coffee," Adam suggested. No, thanks. Keeps me awake. Did you have something you wanted to see me about?" Adam said, "I was thinking about your father, and I thought I'd like to talk to Hamilton." Will relaxed a little in his chair. "He was a great old talker." "Somehow he made a man better than he was," said Adam. Lee looked up from his darning egg. "Perhaps the best conversationalist in the world is a man who helps others to talk." Will said, "You know, it sounds funny to hear you use all those two-bit words. I swear to God you used to talk pidgin." "I used to," said Lee. "It was a vanity, I guess." He smiled at Adam and said to Will, "Did you hear that somewhere up in Siberia they dug a mastodon out of the ice? It had been there 100,000 years and the meat was still fresh." "Mastodon?" "Yeah, a kind of elephant that hasn't lived on the earth for a long time." "Meat was still fresh?" "Sweet as a pork chop," said Lee. He shoved the wooden egg into the shattered knee of a black stocking. "That's very interesting," said Will. Adam laughed. "Lee hasn't wiped my nose yet, but that will come," he said. "I guess I'm pretty roundabout. The whole thing comes up because I'm tired of just sitting around. I want to get something to take up my time." "Oh, why don't you farm your place?" "No, that doesn't interest me. You see, Will, I'm not like a man looking for a job. I'm looking for work. I don't need a job." Will came out of his cautiousness. "Well, what can I do for you?" "I thought I'd tell you an idea I had, and you might give me an opinion. You're a businessman." "Of course," said Will. "Anything I can do." "I've been looking into refrigeration," said Adam. "I've got an idea and I can't get rid of it. I go to sleep and it comes right back to me. Never had anything give me so much trouble. It's a kind of a big idea. Maybe it's full of holes." Will uncrossed his legs and pulled at his pants where they were binding him. "Go ahead. Shoot," he said. "Like a cigar." Adam didn't hear the offer, nor did he know the implication. "The whole country's changing," Adam said. "People aren't going to live the way they used to. Do you know where the biggest market for oranges in the winter is?" "No, where?" "New York City. I read that. Now, in the cold parts of the country, don't you think people get to wanting perishable things in the winter, like peas and lettuce and cauliflower? In a big part of the country, they don't have those things for months and months. And right here in the Salinas Valley, we can raise them all the year round." "Right here isn't right there," said Will. "What's your idea?" "Well, Lee made me get a big icebox, and I got kind of interested. I put different kinds of vegetables in there. I got to arranging them different ways. You know, Will, if you chop ice fine and lay a head of lettuce in it and wrap it in wax paper, it'll keep 3 weeks and come out fresh and good." "Go on," said Will cautiously. "Well, you know the railroads built these fruit cars. I went down and had a look at them. They're pretty good. Do you know we could ship lettuce right to the East Coast in the middle of winter?" Will asked, "Where do you come in?" "I was thinking of buying the ice plant here in Salinas and trying to ship some things." "That would cost a lot of money." "I have quite a lot of money," said Adam. Will Hamilton pulled his lip angrily. "I don't know why I got into this," he said. "I know better." "How do you mean?" "Look here," said Will. "When a man comes to me for advice about an idea, I know he doesn't want advice. He wants me to agree with him. And if I want to keep his friendship, I tell him his idea is fine and go ahead. But I like you and you're a friend of my family, so I'm going to stick my neck out." Lee put down his darning, moved the sewing basket to the floor, and changed his glasses. Adam remonstrated. "What are you getting upset about?" "I come from a whole goddamn family of inventors," said Will. "We had ideas for breakfast. We had ideas instead of breakfast. We had so many ideas, we forgot to make the money for groceries. When we got a little ahead, my father or Tom patented something. I'm the only one in the family, except my mother, who didn't have ideas. And I'm the only one who ever made a dime. Tom had ideas about helping people. Some of it was pretty darn near socialism. And if you tell me you don't care about making a profit, I'm going to throw that coffee pot right at your head." "Well, I don't care much." "You stop right there, Adam. I've got my neck out. If you want to drop $40,000 or $50,000 quick, you just go on with your idea. But I'm telling you, let your damned idea die. Kick dust over it." "What's wrong with it?" "Everything's wrong with it. People in the East aren't used to vegetables in the winter. They wouldn't buy them. You get your car stuck on a siding and you'll lose the shipment. The market's controlled. Oh, Jesus Christ, it makes me mad when babies try to ride into business on an idea." Adam sighed. "You make Sam Hamilton sound like a criminal," he said. "Well, he was my father and I loved him, but I wish to God he had let ideas alone." Will looked at Adam, saw amazement in his eyes. And suddenly Will was ashamed. He shook his head slowly from side to side. "I didn't mean to run down my people," he said. "I think they were good people. But my advice to you stands. Let refrigeration alone." Adam turned slowly to Lee. "Have you got any more of that lemon pie we had for supper?" he asked. "I don't think so," said Lee. "I thought I heard mice in the kitchen. I'm afraid there'll be white of egg on the boys' pillows. You got half a quart of whiskey?" "Have I? Oh, why don't we have that?" "I got excited," said Will, and he tried to laugh at himself. "A drink would do me good." His face was fiery red and his voice was strained in his throat. "I'm getting too fat," he said. But he had 2 drinks and relaxed. Sitting comfortably, he instructed Adam. "Some things don't ever change their value," he said. "If you want to put money into something, you look around at the world. This war in Europe's going to go on a long time, and when there's war, there's going to be hungry people. I won't say it is so, but it wouldn't surprise me if we got into it. I don't trust this Wilson. He's all theory and big words. And if we do get into it, there's going to be fortunes made in imperishable foods. You take rice and corn and wheat and beans. They don't need ice. They keep and people can stay alive on them. I'd say if you were to plant your whole damn bottomland to beans and just put them away, why, your boys wouldn't have to worry about the future. Beans are up to 3 cents now. If we get into the war, I wouldn't be surprised if they went to 10 cents. And you keep beans dry and they'll be right there waiting for a market. If you want to turn a profit, you plant beans. He went away feeling good. The shame that had come over him was gone, and he knew that he had given sound advice. After Will had gone, Lee brought out 1/3 of a lemon pie and cut it in two. "He's getting too fat," Lee said. Adam was thinking. "I only said I wanted something to do," he observed. "How about the ice plant?" "I think I'll buy it." "You might plant some beans too," said Lee. Late in the year, Adam made his great try, and it was a sensation in a year of sensations, both local and international. As he got ready, businessmen spoke of him as far-seeing, forward-looking, progress-minded. The departure of 6 carloads of lettuce packed in ice was given a civic overtone. The Chamber of Commerce attended the departure. The cars were decorated with big posters which said, "Salinas Valley Lettuce." But no one wanted to invest in the project. Adam, untapped energy he did not suspect he had. It was a big job to gather, trim, box, ice and load the lettuce. There was no equipment for such work. Everything had to be improvised. A great many hands hired and taught to do the work. Everyone gave advice, but no one helped. It was estimated that Adam had spent a fortune on his idea, but how big a fortune no one knew. Adam didn't know. Only Lee knew. The idea looked good. The lettuce was consigned to commission merchant in New York at a fine price. Then the train was gone and everyone went home to wait. If it was a success, any number of men were willing to dig down to put money in. Even Will Hamilton wondered whether he had not been wrong with his advice. If the series of events had been planned by an omnipotent and unforgiving enemy, it could not have been more effective. As the train came to Sacramento, a snowslide closed the Sierras for 2 days, and the 6 cars stood on a siding, dripping their ice away. On the 3rd day the freight crossed the mountains, and that was the time for unseasonable warm weather throughout the Middle West. In Chicago there developed a confusion of orders. No one's fault, just one of those things that happens, and Adam's 6 cars of lettuce stood in the yard for 5 more days. That was enough. And there's no reason to go into it in detail. What arrived in New York was 6 carloads of horrible slop, with a sizable charge just to get rid of it. Adam read the telegram from the commission house, and he settled back in his chair, and a strange, enduring smile came on his face and did not go away. Lee kept away from him to let him get a grip on himself. The boys heard the reaction in Salinas. Adam was a fool. These know-it-all dreamers always got into trouble. Businessmen congratulated themselves on their foresight in keeping out of it. It took experience to be a businessman. People who inherited their money always got into trouble. And if you wanted any proof, just look at how Adam had run his ranch. A fool and his money were soon parted. Maybe that would teach him a lesson. And he had doubled the output of the ice company. Will Hamilton recalled that he had not only argued against it, but had foretold in detail what would happen. He did not feel pleasure. But what could you do when a man wouldn't take an advice from a sound businessman? God knows, Will had plenty of experience with fly-by-night ideas. In a roundabout way, it was recalled that Sam Hamilton had been a fool too, and as for Tom Hamilton, he'd just been crazy. When Lee felt that enough time had passed, he did not beat around the bush. He sat directly in front of Adam to get and to keep his attention. "How do you feel?" he asked. "All right." "You aren't going to crawl back in your hole, are you?" "What makes you think that?" Adam asked. "Well, you have the look in your face you used to wear, and you've got that sleepwalker-like in your eyes. Does this hurt your feelings?" "No," said Adam. "The only thing I was wondering about was whether I'm wiped out." "Not quite," said Lee. You have about $9,000 left and the ranch. There's a $2,000 bill for garbage disposal, said Adam. Oh, that's before the 9,000. I owe quite a bit for the new ice machinery. Oh, that's paid. I have 9,000. And the ranch, said Lee. Oh, maybe you can sell the ice plant. Adam's face tightened up and lost the dazed smile. I still believe it will work, he said. It was a whole lot of accidents. I'm going to keep the ice plant. Cold does preserve things. Besides, the plant makes some money. Maybe I can figure something out. Try not to figure something that costs money, said Lee. I'd hate to leave my gas stove. The twins felt Adam's failure very deeply. They were 15 years old and they'd known so long that they were sons of a wealthy man that the feeling was hard to lose. If only the affair had not been a kind of carnival, it would not have been so bad. They remembered the big placards on the freight cars with horror. If the businessman had made fun of Adam, the high school group was much more cruel. Overnight it became the thing to refer to the boys as Aaron and Cal Lettuce, or simply as Lettuce Head. Aaron discussed his problem with Abra. It's going to make a big difference, he told her. Abra had grown to be a beautiful girl. Her breasts were rising with the leaven of her years, and her face had the calm and warmth of beauty. She had gone beyond prettiness. She was strong and sure and feminine. She looked at his worried face and asked, Why is it going to make a difference? Well, one thing, I think we're poor. Well, you would have worked anyway. You know I want to go to college. Oh, you still can. I'll help you. Did your father lose all his money? I don't know. That's what they say. Who is they? Abra asked. Why, everybody. Maybe your father and mother won't want you to marry me. Then I won't tell them about it, said Abra. You're pretty sure of yourself? Yes, she said. I'm pretty sure of myself. Will you kiss me? Right here, right in the street? Why not? Everybody'd see. I want them to, said Abra. Aaron said, No, I don't like to make things public like that. She stepped round in front of him and stopped him. You look here, mister. You kiss me now. Why, she said slowly, so everybody will know that I'm Mrs. Lettucehead. He gave her a quick, embarrassed peck, then forced her beside him again. Maybe I ought to call it off myself, he said. What do you mean? Well, I'm not good enough for you now. I'm just another poor kid. You think I haven't seen the difference in your father? You're just crazy, Abra said. And she frowned a little because she had seen the difference in her father too. They went into Bell's candy store and sat at a table. The rage was celery tonic that year. The year before it had been root beer ice cream sodas. Abra stirred bubbles delicately with her straw and thought how her father had changed since the lettuce failure. He had said to her, Don't you think it would be wise to see someone else for a change? But I'm engaged to Aaron. Engaged? He snorted at her. Since when do children get engaged? You'd better look around a little. There are other fish in the sea. And she remembered that recently there had been references to suitability of families, and once a hint that some people couldn't keep a scandal hidden forever. This had happened only when Adam was reputed to have lost all his money. She leaned across the table. You know what we could really do? It's so simple, it will make you laugh. What? We could run your father's ranch. My father says it's beautiful land. No, Aaron said quickly. Why not? I'm not going to be a farmer, and you're not going to be a farmer's wife. I'm going to be Aaron's wife no matter what he is. I'm not going to give up college, he said. I'll help you, Abra said again. Where would you get the money? Steal it, she said. I want to get out of this town, he said. Everybody's sneering at me. I can't stand it here. They'll forget it pretty soon. No, they won't either. I don't want to stay 2 years more to finish high school. Do you want to go away from me, Aaron? Oh, no. Oh, damn it. Why did he have to mess things up? He doesn't know about... Abra reproved him. Don't you blame your father. If it had worked, everybody would be bowing to him. Well, it didn't work. He sure fixed me. I can't hold up my head. By God, I hate him. Abra said sternly, Aaron, You stop talking like that. How do I know he didn't lie about my mother? Abra's face reddened with anger. You ought to be spanked, she said. If it wasn't in front of everybody, I'd spank you myself. She looked at his beautiful face, twisted now with rage and frustration, and suddenly she changed her tactics. Why don't you ask about your mother? Just come right out and ask him. I can't, I promised you. You only promised not to say what I told you. Well, if I asked him, he'd want to know where I'd heard. All right, she cried. You're a spoiled baby. I let you out of your promise. Go ahead and ask him. I don't know if I will or not. Sometimes I want to kill you, she said. But Aaron, I do love you so. There was giggling from the stools in front of the soda fountain. Their voices had risen and they were overheard by their peers. Aaron blushed. Tears of anger started in his eyes. He ran out of the store and plunged away up the street. Abra calmly picked up her purse, straightened her skirt and brushed it with her hand. She walked calmly over to Mr. Bell and paid for the celery tonics. On her way to the door, she stopped by the giggling group. You let him alone, she said coldly. She walked on, and a falsetto followed her. Oh, Aaron, I do love you so. In the street, she broke into a run to try to catch up with Aaron, but she couldn't find him. She called on the telephone. Lee said that Aaron had not come home. But Aaron was in his bedroom, lapped in resentments. Lee had seen him creep in and close his door behind him. Abra walked up and down the streets of Salinas, hoping to catch sight of him. She was angry with him, but she was also bewilderingly lonely. Aaron had never run away from her before. Abra had lost her gift for being alone. Cal had to learn loneliness. For a very short time he tried to join Abra and Aaron, but they didn't want him. He was jealous and tried to attract the girl to himself and failed. His studies he found easy and not greatly interesting. Aaron had to work harder to learn, wherefore Aaron had a greater sense of accomplishment when he did learn, and he developed a respect for learning out of all proportion with the quality of the learning. Cal drifted through. He didn't care much for the sports at school or for the activities. His growing restlessness drove him out at night. He grew tall and rangy, and always there was the darkness about him.